Gentlemen, picture yourself awakening tomorrow with the level of hardness you haven't experienced in years. No medications, no devices, no dangerous procedures. Simply utilizing your hands and several minutes of straightforward, accurate stimulation to activate your body's inherent erection mechanism. As a urologist with more than 10 years of expertise assisting men in recovering their intimate vitality, I'm here to demonstrate 3 particular pressure zones on your anatomy and adjacent regions that can restore morning firmness by enhancing circulation, loosening appropriate muscles, and amplifying nerve reactivity. If you've been lacking that spontaneous morning response, remain attentive, because once this presentation concludes, you'll understand precisely where these zones are located, the proper stimulation method, and the frequency needed for genuine outcomes. Before discussing the locations and techniques, understanding the underlying science is essential, because recognizing these mechanisms reveals you're not merely touching tissue, you're engaging one of the male body's most potent systems. Firmness isn't accidental or purely physical. It represents a precisely synchronized interaction among your brain, spinal column, vascular system, nervous tissue, and muscular structures. Everything begins with neural impulses, microscopic electrical transmissions traveling at extraordinary velocity from cerebral centers or sensory receptors to erectile tissue. These transmissions instruct the smooth musculature within the penis to decompress, permitting blood to surge inward and saturate the porous chambers called corpora cavernosa. As they expand, vessels that typically evacuate blood become compressed, capturing the blood internally and generating rigidity. Here's where aging alters the dynamics. Progressively, the vascular pathways in your pelvic zone can become rigid due to diminished flexibility in arterial walls, a phenomenon hastened by years of deterioration, subtle inflammation, or circumstances like elevated blood pressure. Simultaneously, neural transmission decelerates, meaning those electrical communications from cerebral or sensory sources don't propagate as rapidly or powerfully as previously. This dual challenge, sluggish blood movement and diminished neural impulses, constitutes a primary reason morning firmness begins disappearing after 50 or 60 years. Focused pressure zone stimulation functions because it transmits an instant activation signal throughout your nervous architecture. When you compress or manipulate particular zones, you stimulate concentrations of sensory nerve terminals that connect directly into reflex circuits associated with firmness regulation. These impulses don't remain localized. They propagate to the pelvic nerve network and even ascend to the spinal column's sacral segment, which contains the firmness command center. This initiates a cascade. The nervous system instructs the smooth penile musculature to decompress, the arteries to expand, and the blood to circulate more abundantly. But there's additional benefit. Certain zones also directly influence the pelvic floor musculature, the supportive muscular structure that bolsters the penis during firmness and regulates release. Stimulating them can enhance their strength and reactivity, facilitating maintenance of rigidity once achieved. This explains why pressure zone work offers dual advantages. It can facilitate firmness initiation more readily and also extend duration. When you compress or manipulate the correct locations, you're essentially circumventing some age-related deceleration and providing your firmness system a direct manual enhancement. Consider it analogous to system restoration, eliminating delays, revitalizing signals, and enabling the biological components to collaborate efficiently again. Performed consistently, this stimulation type can recondition your erectile reflexes, improve vascular adaptability, and even amplify nerve sensitivity progressively. The initial zone we'll target is termed the base groove, positioned precisely at your anatomy's foundation, the exact location where the shaft converges with the pubic zone. To identify it, trace your fingers along the shaft's underside toward your body. You'll detect a subtle groove or depression resembling a natural junction where erectile tissue merges into deeper structures secured in the pelvis. This region might feel subtly distinct from the remaining shaft, slightly denser or more textured, because it's a convergence point of significant anatomical components. Why does this location matter tremendously? Beneath your tissue, here exists a concentrated matrix of sensory nerve terminals, including dorsal nerve branches of the penis, alongside critical blood vessel connections that supply directly into the erectile chambers. Consider it a command center where impulses from your nervous system and circulation merge. By stimulating this region, you're essentially activating both your neural pathways and your vascular network simultaneously, promoting superior communication among your brain, spinal column, and anatomy. When you apply gentle yet purposeful circular movements to the base groove, you're transmitting two crucial messages to your physiology. First, you're instructing your blood vessels to dilate and permit increased flow, which amplifies circulation. Second, you're instructing your nerve fibers to activate and prepare for more efficient signal transmission. This pairing primes the erectile tissue to respond more promptly when arousal impulses arrive, whether during morning hours or later daily. Here's the correct execution method. Position your thumb directly over the base groove while your fingers support the shaft's posterior for stability. Begin with moderate compression, sufficient to perceive the underlying tissue through your thumb, but never approaching discomfort. Create small, unhurried circles, allowing the warmth of your contact to gradually permeate the region. As you proceed, you can progressively intensify the pressure firmness, particularly if you sense the tissue beginning to soften and decompress. You might detect pleasant warmth, subtle tingling sensations, or even developing fullness. Those responses are your physiology's method of indicating that circulation is increasing and that your erectile tissue is becoming more reactive. If you perceive minimal sensations initially, don't be concerned. Consistency proves essential. Over time, daily practice will heighten sensitivity in this region and render outcomes more apparent. For optimal results, work the base groove daily during morning hours, ideally before rising from bed, when your physiology is naturally decompressed. A warm shower represents another ideal timing, as heat will have already softened your tissues and improved circulation. Over weeks, this straightforward yet precise technique can recondition your erectile reflexes, facilitating restoration of those robust, dependable morning responses you believed you'd forfeited. The second zone we're emphasizing isn't actually positioned on the shaft itself, but in a somewhat concealed, frequently overlooked region, the perineum. This is that supple, slightly elastic tissue section situated between the scrotum and anus. Numerous men disregard it completely, but regarding firmness, strength, and regulation, it's an absolute powerhouse. Why? Because it rests directly above the bulbospongiosus muscle, a crucial participant in maintaining rigidity once aroused. The bulbospongiosus muscle is among the primary muscles in your pelvic floor responsible for capturing blood inside the penis during firmness. Consider it a biological valve that prevents blood from evacuating too rapidly. Over time, particularly with aging, this muscle can deteriorate if not actively utilized, making rigidity maintenance more challenging. By applying focused compression and manipulation to the perineal location, you can reflexively activate this muscle, essentially providing it conditioning without even performing complete Kegel exercises. To identify it, either position yourself in a comfortable seat or recline with your knees slightly separated. Using two fingers, typically your index and middle fingers work optimally, compress gently yet firmly into the perineum's center. You're not compressing hard enough to create discomfort, but sufficiently to perceive the underlying muscle responding. Move your fingers in unhurried, purposeful circles, remaining centered in that optimal location. As you manipulate, you may detect subtle sensations developing. Perhaps gentle warmth radiating toward your penis, or faint pulsing as circulation improves. That's your pelvic musculature activating and your circulation responding. Dedicate 2 to 3 minutes here, maintaining your contact steady and regulated. For additional enhancement, combine this with light pelvic floor exercises like Kegels, either preceding or following the manipulation. This pairing doesn't just assist momentarily, it conditions the muscle to contract more powerfully during arousal, making your firmness feel fuller and more reliable progressively. The perineum may be concealed, but concerning morning vitality restoration, it should never be neglected. The third and final zone is positioned at one of the male anatomy's most sensitive regions, directly beneath the penis head. This is identified as the glans, and more precisely, we're targeting the ring-shaped ridge where the glans converges with the shaft, termed the corona. This region is saturated with an exceptionally concentrated distribution of sensory nerve terminals. These nerves are your physiology's primary communicators for transmitting arousal impulses to the spinal column's firmness center. When this location is stimulated with the appropriate balance of compression and rhythm, it can elevate nerve reactivity, facilitating easier transition from arousal to complete firmness. It's almost analogous to calibrating your physiology's arousal circuitry so it responds more efficiently when needed. This zone functions optimally when stimulation is regulated. Excessive intensity here can overwhelm the nerves and produce contrary effects. To work this region, gently grasp your anatomy with your thumb and forefinger, positioning them on either side of the corona. Lightly compress the ridge and maintain for approximately 5 seconds, then gradually release. Replicate this hold and release movement for roughly 1 minute, ensuring the compression remains firm yet comfortable. Following that, transition to unhurried circular movements around the corona's entire circumference, allowing your fingers to glide sufficiently to stimulate the nerve terminals without creating friction irritation. This second minute of circular work helps activate the sensory pathways even more, promoting faster signal propagation between the penis and brain. Over time, consistent stimulation of the glans ridge in this moderate rhythmic manner can produce stronger, more frequent morning firmness. You may also observe improved overall sensitivity during intimacy, making arousal feel more instinctive and spontaneous. Remember, this isn't about overwhelming the nerves. It's about gently reconditioning them to respond as they did in younger years. Consider it a daily reminder to your physiology of how optimal circulation and nerve coordination should function. The most favorable outcomes occur when you treat these 3 zones not as isolated techniques, but as components of a unified, purposeful regimen. Here's the sequence I recommend to patients for maximum advantage. Commence with the base groove for approximately 90 seconds, creating those small, steady circular movements until you perceive the region warming and responsive. Then transition to the perineal location for 2 minutes, compressing and manipulating in unhurried, purposeful circles to activate the pelvic floor and promote deeper circulation. Finally, conclude with the glans ridge for another 2 minutes, employing that hold and release technique followed by gentle circular strokes to reactivate nerve sensitivity. Performed consecutively, this sequence stimulates circulation, engages muscular support, and sharpens neural communication, all essential elements required for firmer, more reliable morning responses. Now I want to establish appropriate expectation. This isn't an instant transformation that changes everything overnight. Your physiology requires time to adapt, to recondition those vessels, muscles, and nerves to collaborate again. However, numerous patients begin noticing subtle yet encouraging modifications within merely 2 to 4 weeks. Improved warmth and fullness during mornings, firmness that persists slightly longer, and a general sensation of increased vitality in the pelvic region. For genuinely enduring improvements, combine this daily pressure zone regimen with healthy lifestyle practices. Maintaining proper hydration throughout the day keeps your blood volume and circulation at their optimum. Keeping your pelvic floor robust with exercises like Kegels adds to the rigidity you'll observe from this technique, and don't undervalue nutrition's power. When you incorporate these steps into your daily rhythm, the advantages tend to compound. The zones become more reactive, circulation improves, and your physiology begins remembering how to perform as it once did. It's about establishing an environment where strong, natural firmness can occur more readily and accomplishing it in a manner that's safe, medication-free, and completely within your authority. Gentlemen, you don't have to accept diminished or vanishing morning firmness as a standard aging component. Your physiology still possesses the capacity to respond. It simply requires the appropriate stimulation and support. By compressing these 3 zones daily, you can recondition your nerves, restore circulation, and recover that morning confidence without medications or dangerous procedures. If you found this helpful, incorporate it into your regimen and share how it works for you. And remember, your intimate health reflects your overall health, so every measure you take toward superior circulation and muscle strength will benefit you in the bedroom and beyond.